I'm Phyllis, Tickle, and I'm here talking with Pete Rollins. One of the things I would really like to explore with you, you talk about every time we go through one of these big upheavals, like we're going through now, every 500 years when we go through one of these things, one of the characteristics of it is that, as you know, that the canon doesn't change, but the way you look at the canon turns, just like this, you know. I mean, you've got Wycliffe and Tyndale and Erasmus and the Bishop's Bible and the Geneva Bible, and finally we get the King James, the last time we went through. But your work on, your writing, especially in the Fidelity of the Trail, about the hole in the text, I think constitutes the theology and the thinking, the philosophic undergirding for that shifting that we're going through right now. Can you talk briefly about the hole in the text and also about the danger of the traditional Western definition of truth, the academic distancing from the text?
Absolutely. There's two really good questions there. I mean,
yeah, I know. There's two questions in one, but she said I could have one question, so there's two. Yeah.
I could talk all day.
Yeah, it's Bicephalus, okay?
I'll try and keep it quick. I mean, yeah, I'm fascinated by the idea that there is a traumatic event in the biblical text, and that this is where the truth of the Bible is. It's interesting if someone has had a traumatic event, if someone has been abused and they're in court and they're talking about it, if they're very clear on what's happened and they can give dates and they can give times, then it's potentially they're not telling the truth. But if actually the dates and the times don't fit and they're using the kind of metaphors that don't quite fit, then it's actually evidence of the authenticity and the truth. You know?
Here. Yeah. Exactly.
So I see this in the Bible. We've got obviously images of God as warrior, images of God as peacemaker, images of God who doesn't change and who repents, who sees everything and who's blind to the suffering of the people.
Absolutely.
And that's exactly what you would expect. There's this traumatic core of the text which gives birth to this kinetic energy, this dynamic use of language, and the worst thing we can do is try to make it all fit, as if the truth of God is in the warrior or the peacemaker or in some blend of it all. Yes. No, the truth is in the rupture that creates those words and that gives life to those words. I love the idea actually that God isn't the patch of meaning that we put on the wound of our unknowing. God is the wound, and we generate patches to describe the wound. Yeah, that's what I'm interested in terms of revelation, and it's key. For me, we think revelation is a whispering in the ear, that we can hear something without heeding it, without it changing our life. There's an old anecdote about the Italian soldiers during the Second World War, and there was this group of them who loved the opera, but they were very cowardly. And the chief soldier says to the guys, "Right, lads, over the top." Nobody moves. And he says, "Right, lads, over the top." And nobody moves. And he says it a third time. And after the third time, one of the soldiers turns to the others and says, "What a wonderful voice he has." You know, it's a beautiful voice. They could hear the message, but they didn't heed it. And for me, revelation is about, you can't hear it unless it transforms your social existence, unless it changes you utterly and dynamically. And I think we've reduced God to an idea, to something we can speak about, rather than as this traumatic event which transforms and changes us.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm very excited about this.
I'm loving this. I'm loving this.
Yeah.
And also you elaborated at one point the academic.
Yes.
It's not that either of us, I think, is anti-intellectual. I mean,
No,
I think
no.
it would cut us both off at the knees.
Yes.
You know, if we'd be a laughingstock if either of us took that position. But I share with you, if I understand correctly what you're writing, some sense that our academics right now are an academic approach. Is based on certain principles or givens or DNA maybe of the Western tradition.
Absolutely.
In which truth is a thing, and therefore, could you speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what I see through the history of philosophy and theology.
I know your PhD is
in philosophy, and actually, when you talk about philosophy today, you often it means anti-philosophy, because anti-philosophy is philosophy. Yeah. So to speak against philosophy is to be philosophical. So in the tradition, there's this sense in which we want to name God. I mean, there's a beautiful story that the first woman in the Bible is actually not Eve but Lilith. Some rabbis, they looked at the text and they said, "Oh, on the sixth day God created male and female," and then later on they see that after Adam had named all the animals and was bored, he created Eve. And so the rabbis went, who is this woman who God and Adam never talk about anymore? She must have been a nightmare, you know. They tried to create a woman who was a bit easier to handle. And the story is, yes, Lilith...
Never will happen, but that's okay.
Absolutely. Well, Lilith created on the sixth day, and Adam feared her, and his trouble was brewing in paradise, so she tries to escape. She finds God walking in the heat of the day, and they sit and they talk. And Lilith says, can you tell me your secret name? The name you tell no one else. And God is in a good mood, says, what's the harm? Whispers the name into Lilith's ear, and Lilith grows these massive wings and flies out of Eden. Now, what I love about that story is right from the beginning, there's this sense we're trying to get the name. It's in Jewish mythology. It's right the way through to Descartes, we need God to justify existence of the world. And so God becomes an object that we can speak of. And I'm interested in the idea that God is not an object that we know the number of hairs in God's head. God knows the number of hairs in our head. We're the object and God's the absolute subject. One way I think about this is that not everything that exists can be objectified. If I take my own life, I can't experience my life. It's my life that opens me up to experience. Like I can't see the light. It's the light that allows me to see. And I say that God is so close and so intimate that we can't reflect. It's what we reflect from. And in a sense, then religious experience isn't experience at all. It's what allows us to experience everything differently. So God doesn't enter the world as an object to study. When God enters the world, every object changes for us.